This here is called Builder's Arms, this pub. This pub is the greatest. This pub is the greatest pub in the world. Now, I certainly could be a little bit biased here due to some sentimental value. And the reason for that sentimental value is, if you walk about 5 minutes this direction, this very unassuming building on this tiny street is actually part of a university. That university, called Richmond University, is where a very young 21-year-old Andrew, where he left the North American continent for the first time in his life to do a study abroad program. And when I say study abroad, I mean study abroad. If you head back this way, this building here, not even 5 minutes east of Builder's Arms, this is the main residence hall for this campus of the Richmond University. This neighborhood is amazing. This building, not so much. They had the cafeteria in there. It was terrible. The building is not big enough to house all of the students, so if you continue to walk another 10 minutes in this direction, that building over there, that sort of two-tone orangish looking building right here, that's where I stayed. That's where they put me up. Now, at the time, that place was called the Albert. They have since changed the name to the Astor. Hostel is the key word, though. Amongst this incredibly expensive neighborhood sits a hostel like this, and it was quite budget. 4 of us on 2 sets of bunk beds in there. You can imagine the bathroom situation. Not even half a block in this direction. Up this way, the exquisite Hyde Park. If I could pick anywhere to spend the rest of my days, anywhere in the world, there's 2 spots. Manhattan Beach, California, and South Kensington in London, England. Both ridiculously expensive and very unlikely to happen, but it's good to have dreams. Let's go back to the pub. Right, so the point of this vlog actually is not just to gush about London. There is an event happening here in London, a meetup game event happening, the biggest meetup game that we've ever done. 4 days worth of meetup games happening over at Asper's Casino out in Stratford. That starts on Thursday, and today is only Tuesday. So, what are we gonna talk about today? Well, today we're actually gonna talk about an experiment. Not quite a meetup game, but definitely some similarities. For this event, we're going to throw it back to last Thursday. The event happened in downtown Las Vegas at the Golden Nugget Casino. Alright, back where it all began, vlog number 1. Good old Golden Nugget Poker Room. For sure one of my favorite spots in all of Las Vegas. Normally, mainly just 1-2 games here, but today they're gonna have something a little bit different. All right, so basically, as I've touched on previously in some other episodes on this vlog, going to maybe a little bit on the board side with the no limit, the 9-handed no limit Texas Hold'em grind. At least as far as the mid stakes go here in Las Vegas, I just feel like it's missing a little bit something. So I had an idea for hosting a mixed game, a round by round game. All these games today that we're gonna be playing, it's gonna have the same mechanics as your typical no limit Hold'em game with a flop, turn, and river. Of course, there are some variances to the games, and speaking of variances, there will be a little bit more variance in each of these games. It's going to be mainly games that are a little bit on the familiar side. Granted, some of these games nobody's going to be an expert in. They're going to be flop games. There's going to be a flop, a turn, and a river in all these games. We're going to play a mix of no limit Hold'em, pot limit Omaha, and short deck. And just to add a little bit more variance into the mix, we're going to be doing $50 flips every dealer change. What that means is everybody will put in $50 blind and we'll just run the board out, and whoever wins, wins. I think these games are going to be six-handed because that just fits better for the short deck. Now, this is going to be very much an experiment today. We'll probably make some tweaks as we're going, expecting a reasonable turnout. I was going to be happy to get one game going, and there's 40 people on the list. So we'll see what happens. If we get multiple tables, that's great. If we don't, that's great too. Let's see how this experiment unfolds. The game got off to a pretty fast start. We got 3 tables going within an hour. So if we had gotten 1 table, I would have been perfectly happy. 2 was a bonus. To get 3 tables of this mix of games, it's going to be a bunch of people that have basically or literally never played short deck in their entire life. So to get 3 tables of this game going, I was very happy to see that. Definitely have some hands here. For the games that are not called No Limit Texas Hold'em, my analysis is going to be a little bit limited, but we definitely got some hands that we can take a look at here. In this first one, I have Queen 9-7-6 double suited. Probably a pretty marginal hand, but considering we are a little bit on the short-handed side, we're going to be playing 6-handed or 7-handed through the vast majority of this session. Seems like a fine open to me. I make it $20 to go. There's a call before the button puts in a 3-bet to $90. I don't really want to take this hand multi-way, so it's a little bit concerning that there's a call behind me, but it just feels a little bit too nitty to fold. So I'm going to make the call here, and luckily we are going heads up to a flop here. So a lot of times my flush draws and straight draws can be dominated with this type of a hand, even though it is double suited. There's action post-flop multi-way. There's going to be a lot of reverse implied odds, I think, a lot of the time, but I think facing a 3-bet and going heads up is a pretty good situation here with this hand. On the flop, we find ourselves middle pair plus all the backdoor draws in the world. I check, and unfortunately he makes a pretty big wager. He bets $200 with only like $200 behind, so he seems pretty pot committed. We're just going to go ahead and get all the money in here. There's not going to be too much choice. He's representing a pretty narrow range of overpairs, so hopefully all of our outs and our backdoor draws are going to be live in this spot, but we're just never going to fold for these stack sizes, so we do go ahead and jam, and he calls right away. Since this is a time game, we can definitely run it twice. We can do whatever we want in this game, so we agree to run it twice, and on the first board, my opponent ends up with top set, which is pocket kings, and on the second board, we find ourselves with 2 pair by the river. So we're going to go ahead and chop this pot. This next hand is definitely a fun one. There is an early position raise to $20 from my friend Billy out of Detroit, Michigan. I like down an ace-9 offsuit, and I know Billy can mix it up. So when I find myself an ace blocker in position, a hand that I don't want to flat call here with, it's not going to play that great, but I do want to go ahead and give some action here. So I 3-bet it $75 with the ace-9 offsuit. Only Billy calls. So we go heads up to a flop, which comes Jack-10-4 with 2 hearts. He checks it over to me, and I think both betting and checking are probably fine. We have the initiative. We can keep our range uncapped with the C-bet, and we can also barrel, definitely on a queen, also on an 8. We can also continue barreling since we don't have any hearts in our hand, but we can also check behind since I know Billy likes to fight for a lot of pots, and I don't want to take this hand, which is not going to improve all that often, to the streets and just start blasting away. So I check it. The turn pairs the 4, and this time Billy leads out. He bets $95. I don't want to give it up just yet. I have a hand that unblocks a lot of his drawing hands. I don't have any hearts in my hand, and he could have all sorts of drawing hands such as King-Queen, Queen-9, 8-9, hands like 5-6 of hearts, 7-6 of hearts, all sorts of heart combinations. So I'm going to go ahead and make the call here and evaluate the river and decide from there. The river's an offsuit jack, and this time he fires for an additional $215. So I think on this card, none of those hands that I just mentioned previously that he could have in his range, such as all the drawing hands, none of those improved on this card in particular. So we do not block a lot of drawing hands. We do block some straight draws, of course, with a 9, but we don't have any hearts in our hand. I think we have a pretty prime candidate to go ahead and hero this one off. Again, trying to give action as a game host here and not just knit it up. And we still have ace-high. I mean, it is still the highest card in the deck. So I toss in the call, and we hear some pretty good news.
You're good.
He says we're good. We go ahead and show down the ace high, and he mucks his hand. So action to be found in this game. All right, in this next hand, back to the pot limit Omaha, the 4-card funsies, and there's a middle position open to $20. We look down at a very pretty hand, Queen, Queen, Jack 10, double suited and in position on the button. Definitely gonna bump this up to $70. Our good buddy Jason Somerville, he's over there in the big blind, and he thinks $70 is still not enough money, so he puts in a 4-bet up to $240. It folds back to me. We are plenty deep here. We have a super playable hand. We have position, so we make a very standard call here. The flop comes down King, King, 9, Rainbow. So we flop ourselves a wrap and at least one backdoor flush draw. He bets $175, and I think we have ourselves a pretty standard flat call here. Can never fold with the wrap. It's not great that the board is paired, and he can have plenty of kings in his range here, but nothing we can do about that. So we're just gonna go ahead and call here. The turn is a 5 of hearts, which adds a flush draw to all of the possibilities. So when he bets $350 here, I think it's perfectly reasonable and perfectly standard to go ahead and flat call again. He could still have trips, but I don't think that 5 is going to improve him to too many full houses. So I think we'll still be live, unless he has a hand like Ace, Ace, King, 9, or Ace, Ace, 9, 9, or if he flop quads and he's just barreling immediately, which is certainly a possibility, but not too many combos. So just gonna go ahead and flat call here. Let's evaluate the river once again. The river is an offsuit jack, so our wrap does come in and we end up with a straight on the river. There are some hands where this card could improve to a full house though. So he could have a hand like Ace, Ace, King, Jack. Of course, he could still have quads. When he checks it over to us, we're definitely going to have to go for some value here. Checking back would just be way too nitty, of course. If we end up getting jammed on, that's going to probably suck, and it's probably going to indicate a full house. So I think it's probably a bet fold spot. I'm not positive. I'm also not exactly sure on what sizing is best here on the river, but we're definitely going to go ahead and have to bet it. I slide out a bet to the tune of $475, and without too much hesitation, my buddy Jason, he throws his cards into the muck. So definitely did not want to see a check raise there on the river for all the chips, but going to take down a pretty good pot here, and that very pretty pre-flop hand comes through in the end. All right, taking a look at some short deck action here. From what I know about short deck, it differs from no limit hold'em, whereas there's tons of situations where open limping seems like the correct play. Pretty much 99.9% of the time, never limp into the pot if I'm first into the pot. But in short deck, it seems like that's a perfectly acceptable and also profitable strategy to do so, mainly due to the antes. You're getting such a good price, and you don't want to bloat the pot too much, especially in a capped betting structure. So I look down at Queen Jack offsuit and go ahead and limp in. Jason Somerville raises it up to $20, and I am the only caller. We go heads up to a flop of King, Queen, Queen with 2 hearts, so we flop ourselves trips here. Check it over to him, and he c-bets $50. With the cap in place at $200, there is only 130 more to play for. So I'm gonna go ahead and cap this pot. Jason snap calls right away, asks if I have anything good. I say, yeah, I got a queen, and he turns over ace queen. So I thought Queen Jack was pretty good, but this is a short deck, and there's gonna be a lot of cooler situations happening in this game. We're off to the races. The turn does not improve us. However, the river does improve us with a jack on the river. Jack. A jack. That's gonna win us the pot. Sometimes the cap is going to work against us, but sometimes it will certainly work for us. It encourages a lot of action. It encourages people to get in there with a variety of hands, so they're not afraid of losing too much in a game that they're not all that familiar with. So this time it might have cost us a little bit, but I can't complain when we end up sucking out on the river. In this next short deck hand, we look down at Ace King, which is still very much a premium in this game. Aces, Kings, Ace King, I think are the 3 main premiums in this game. Jack 10 suited, of course, a very strong hand, but Ace King still top tier. So I raise it up to $20, and we see 3 callers. Flop comes down quite favorable for us, Ace, Ace, Queen. I bet $25, and it turns out that everyone folds, including Billy, who shows us a queen, makes a disciplined fold. Guess he's on to me a little bit, betting into 3 players. I guess I could range bet there. I guess I could put in a small c-bet with a lot of holdings there. I should have the strongest holdings on that flop, but turns out I do in fact have the strongest holding, and Billy makes a good fold there. Continuing in short deck here, we are looking down at Ace King of clubs from under the gun. Go ahead and raise it up to $15 this time. Jason Somerville calls before my friend Billy caps it for $200. My good buddy Dan on the button snap calls for the $200. We're gonna go ahead. We're never folding ace king suited here for a capped betting structure. I snap call as well, and Jason decides he's a gambling man and he calls as well. So we're going 4 ways to see all 5 cards here with $800 in the middle. Turns out Billy in the cutoff has pocket queens, Dan on the button with pocket kings. The flop does come ace high, but unfortunately there is a queen on there as well. So the queens are going to scoop this $800 pot this time after making a full house. And as you can see, short deck, there is lots of variance to be found in this game. Lots of strong hands are going to butt heads pre-flop, and very happily get the money in. The very next hand dealt after that previous hand, Billy raises it up to $20, playing short deck here still. He's in the hijack. Dan calls in the cutoff, and once again, we look down at ace king. Capping situation once again. I toss in the $200, folds back over to Billy. Apparently he's riding a heater. He goes ahead and tosses in the 200, and Dan, the opposite end of the spectrum, he's stuck. Not in a folding mood, so he calls as well. The flop is not a good one for this ace king. It comes down 10-9-8 with 2 clubs, and it turns out it's a very good one for Billy. He rolls over the queen 8 of clubs, so flops himself a ton of equity, if not the best hand versus the other 2 of us. And we're not going to improve on this run out. So gambling man Billy, he goes ahead and it does the job there, gets the job done with the queen 8 of clubs, and you can see again when there's only $200 at risk every single hand, it's definitely going to encourage action, which is a welcome sight. Happy to see some people gambling it up and having fun. And even with this cap betting structure, you win 2 hands in a row with people capping it. That's plus $1,000 in 2 hands for my buddy Billy there from Detroit. All right, one more hand to look at. Another short deck hand. Under the gun player makes it $20. There's 3 calls immediately, and we look down at king queen offsuit on the button. Happy to call here in position and try and flop ourselves something good, whether that's a straight draw or better. The flop does come down better than just a straight draw. We actually flop the nuts. Jack 10-9 with 2 clubs. We have a club in our hand, so it's about literally as good as it gets. Justin immediately throws in $180, which caps the betting for this hand. His middle position call over to us. Obviously, we call, and the under the gun player folds. So we are off to see the last 2 cards, in which we still end up with the nuts in this hand. Some semi-bad news is that the middle position player also has king-queen, so we are going to have to chop this pot up, but we certainly see a little bit of a profit at least. Very likely that somebody had a set, particularly Justin in here, who immediately capped it on the flop. So can't complain too much, chopping a pot and profiting.
All right, guys, I am just gonna go ahead and call that a pretty massive success. It's funny because we're used to getting, you know, double-digit tables at the meetup games, but this was a very different sort of a meetup game. 5-5 PLO. We're playing short deck, which basically nobody has played before. And then the no limit, we're playing 5-5 with a 5 ante, almost like 5-10. Definitely can't compare the two, and no interest in actually comparing the two. To get 3 tables going, 3 tables strong throughout the entire night, basically, of this crazy mixed game. We had the flips going as well, which everybody embraced, and that was a really good time. So to get 3 tables of that was awesome. Got into the game for the original $1,500 maximum buy-in. Did not have to add on any dollars, and cashed out of the game for $3,207, 8, 7, one of those. That's a profit of $1,708. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. What a breath of fresh air it is to play a game like this, where the game changes every rotation, and we get the flips in there, every dealer change, throw some variance in there, some neutral EV variance. Makes for a big breath of fresh air. Kudos to the Golden Nugget. Thanks to them for hosting us and for handling this crazy mixed game so easily and so smoothly. They, the dealers here, they have a good amount of experience dealing PLO as well as short deck. They run a really cool series here called the Grand Poker Series that goes at the same time as the World Series during the summertime. So Definitely we'll be looking to do this again. Always helps to run good, of course. That gives you a nice warm fuzzy feeling about the game, but it seemed like everyone had a great time. To get 3 tables of this is really cool, and like I said, happy to put this together again in the very near future. But in the meantime, the next vlog will be from there.